Thank you, Dov. So let us begin with a practice that is often debated and often misunderstood, which is the idea that on Purim, a person is supposed to drink on Purim. Right? There are those that say a person is supposed to get drunk on Purim. And we're going to soon see the Gemara, and the Gemara itself, actually you think the Gemara is presenting one approach, but there are very, very different approaches, understandings of what the Gemara is in fact saying. And it's not even gray. It spans from black to white. It is the opposite ends of the spectrum. So I'd like to go through the Gemara, the different understandings of the Gemara. We'll go through the Beis Yosef, his explanation on the tour, and then the Aruch HaShulchan is very interesting, and we'll then end up with the latter half of the back side of the daf that I gave out, which is the Shulchan Aruch, and most importantly the Bir Halacha, even more than the Mishnah Berurah over here. Okay, so let us begin.
So is it better to get drunk on
well
than Pesach?
So why don't we get started? Okay, so on the sheet that everybody has, boxed off on the bottom there, and English also you've got. The Gemara says, Amar Rava says, Mechayev inish. A person is chayav, is obligated. Libisume bipuria. Now, bosem, like bisamim, is like a sweet fragrance. Rashi says that libisume means lihishtaker, to get, as the English says here, to become intoxicated. On Purim, ad dilo yada, to the point that a person does not know Bain Arur Haman Lebarach Mordechai. That one cannot differentiate the difference between Arur Haman, cursed is Haman, and Baruch, blessed is Mordechai. Now, it seems very, very strange, because clearly a Jew, a human being, certainly a God-fearing, Torah-observant Jew, is meant to always have one's wits about them. Right? We have to measure carefully not just what we say and don't say. We need to measure carefully our facial expressions, because if we give a dismissive facial expression, that could also be considered Lashon Hara, and that could also have a tremendous effect, a harmful effect on someone. And we're supposed to be monitoring our thoughts. And here we're saying that a person is obligated to become intoxicated until he does not know the difference between Arur Haman and Baruch Mordechai. Now, we'll soon see this in the Mishnah Berurah, but let me just preface by saying that the idea of wine on Purim is a very simple one. The whole redemption all was at Su'udot, was all at these festive banquets, which involved wine. It all began at the banquet that Achashverosh threw, which led to the death of Vashti, because she refused to come when he had summoned her to come to this party. So, and that set the stage for the ultimate redemption, because that is what enabled Esther to become the queen and be in the palace and be in a position to bring about our redemption once Haman rose to power. Now, Haman also rose to power as a result of this banquet, because it was his advice as to what to be done with Vashti that allowed him to rise to prominence. And ultimately, Esther asked to have two private little banquets, with Achashverosh and Haman. So it was the miracles that took place was through a banquet with wine. So therefore we understand that even for the non-drinkers amongst us, right, that Purim is a time, the 2 times that I will religiously drink wine. I'll taste it here and there during the year, but wine as opposed to grape juice is at the Purim Seudah and of course at the Pesach Seder. So we understand the idea of the wine here. The question is, what is this idea of Rav is saying that a person is obligated to become intoxicated until he can't tell the difference between Aror, Haman, and Baruch Mordechai? So, before we go further, just to understand that concept, there are many different ideas on this. If you take a look, I underlined the very top Tosafot on the outer column there. The Yerushalmi, in the Yerushalmi, they don't know between Aror, Haman, and Baruch Mordechai. Cursed is Haman, blessed is Mordechai. The Yerushalmi. Now, you have to be pretty drunk to not be able to say, cursed is Haman, blessed is Mordechai. You've really, really plastered to not be able to cogently remember and express that. The Yerushalmi says it's a lot more than that. It's Arura, Zeresh, cursed is Zeresh. Blessed Barucha Esther, blessed is Esther. Arurim kol Arishoyim, right? Cursed are all of the evildoers. Baruchim, blessed are all of the Yehudim, all the Jews. So the Yerushalmi brings out quite a bit more than that. And the Aruch HaShulchan, he says as follows. V'adavar matmiya, it's astounding, he says. Do you have to become drunk, kar of the shikuro shel Lot? Right, close to the drunkenness of Lot, who unknowingly slept with his 2 daughters when they were afraid that the whole world was being destroyed and there will be no future generations. So they got him drunk and they slept. Is that where we're supposed to get? Right? Now, so he says also, why did the Gemara use a strange term? Right? So therefore, okay, we'll come to that soon. Shaya etzlam zemer. There was a certain long song, Shaya Messiah, that ended off with Aror Haman uBaruch Mordechai. That was the last stanza of a long song. Perhaps. V'hayazemer aroch. It was a long song that one would say by heart. And when you're drunk, lo yucha lo omro kulo. Right? So therefore, we just, no pun intended, lowered the bar quite a bit over here. Right? Meaning it's not that the person can't remember to say these 4 words. Right? But it's a whole long song. So therefore, you should drink until the point that you can know that you can't do that whole long song, where a person still has their wits about them quite well. If you add up the gematria of Aror Haman and Baruch Mordechai, Shnehem Shaveh. They both have the same gematria. The gematria is the numerical value of each of the letters. And they each have the same numerical value, 502. And therefore, right, so you should get drunk until the point where you can't make that mathematical calculation. Now, for some people, even without drinking, that would be a challenge, right? But for most of us, right, once you've had a couple of drinks, you're not going to be making that calculation. There's something weird very easily.
Do you know the vehicle code for drunk driving? I think it's 502.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, we'll check it out later.
Okay.
It's a 502, right? Is that it?
I don't know what that has to do with what he's talking about.
And there are those that say, he goes further, until you cannot really determine which was a greater tova, which is a greater goodness. Okay. Was it the downfall of Haman, or was it the ascent of Mordechai? Okay. So right away we see that there are different understandings of just how much a person is supposed to drink. Then the Gemara tells a story, a wild story. Rabba, for Rabbi Zera, Avdu Su'udas Purim Ba'adei Adadei. Rabba and Rabbi Zera had a Purim Suda together, as people are wont to do. Ivsum, and they got drunk. Kam Rabba, Shachtei le Rabbi Zera. Rabba got up. Simple meaning is he shechted, he slaughtered, he slit the throat of Rabbi Zera. Lamacha, the next day, boy Rachame, he davened va'achye and brought him back to life. Lishana Amar Alei Nesim Marvin Evid Sudas Purim Ba'adei. Next year he invited him and said, "Hey, why don't you come again for the Purim Suda?" Amar Alei Lo B'chol Shatim V'Shatim Mitrachish Nisa. Miracles don't take place all the time. I think I'll just stay home this year, or maybe go elsewhere. But I will not join you for the Purim Suda. Now, the Maharsha learns this, that he didn't literally kill him, shecht him. He gave him to drink too much. And we use the term of shchit. The shchit, of course, takes place by the throat. And it was by drink. He was encouraging him to drink too much, so he shechted him. And the next day he wasn't dead, but he was, we can imagine, a bit hungover, not feeling all that well. And therefore he didn't want to come back the next time. There are those that say that shachte is with a shin, shachte. The same word is written the same way, the same letter, but instead of a shin, you have a sin, right? Same letter, depends where the dot is. So sachte means he squeezed him, right? He gave him too much of a hug. Now, I mean, I've experienced that from people who are drunk, that they might give a little bit too much of a hug. So some explain it to me, not shachte, but sachte, right? He squeezed him too hard, but he didn't shecht him, he didn't kill him. But so there are different approaches. The simple explanation, literally, he shechted him. Maharsha, he gave him too much to drink. Sachte, he gave him a squeeze too much. But here the Gemara just told us that a person is obligated to do this, and then it gives us this story which had a horrific outcome. So why is the Gemara, normally the Gemara presents a view and will tell a story. So you might say, so you see, you're obligated to drink, and we bring the story of Rabbah and Rabbi Zera, who partook and they drank. The Beit Yosef, who is Rav Yosef Karo, who is the author of the Shulchan Aruch, before he wrote his Shulchan Aruch, his Code of Jewish Law, he wrote his Beit Yosef, the House of Joseph commentary on the Tur Shulchan Aruch. The Tur Shulchan Aruch is really the template from which he drew the actual Shulchan Aruch. And there he writes as follows. The Tur writes, it's a mitzvah to increase the Su'udah, and on the very bottom of the page here, I do have the Beis Yosef for you. But first, before I get to that page, it's a mitzvah to have a big Suda, to increase the Suda, the meal, the festive meal on Purim. You need to get drunk. Ad shelo yada, until you don't know bein Ora Haman lebarach Mordechai. Right? Until you don't know the difference between cursed is Haman and blessed is Mordechai. Vim acha b'layla lo yatsa. And that's only by day, not by night. Okay? The Beis Yosef says, that is the Memra, the teaching of Rava in Megillah we just learned. The Katwa Tosos lo yada bain. Now on the sheet that I gave you, is what we're picking up. Bain Ora Haman le Baruch Mordechai. Arura Zeresh Brucha Esther Arurim Kol HaRishoyim Bruchim Kol HaTzadikim. So he writes there that it's a bit more lengthy in that which one must know by heart, and therefore it's a lot less drinking to get to the point where one can't do that. The Kain Kos of Aran Kolomar D'i Bein Arhan Levarach Mordechai L'chud Afilu Shata Tuva Lo Toibe. Because what the Gemara says between cursed is Haman, blessed is Mordechai, You have to, no matter how much you drink, a person, unless he's unconscious, the person should be able to remember that. The Kos of Haran, B'Shem Rabbeinu Ephraim, a whole different way of understanding this Gemara. The Ran writes the name of Rabbeinu Ephraim, the Gemara brought that story not to support the teaching of Rava, but from that story to come Rava B'Sudas Purim V'Shatu Rabbi Zera, that he got up and shechted, like Gemara tells, Idchile Meimra de Rava. The Gemara is bringing that to show that we disagree with Rava. The Gemara is bringing that in order to contradict Rava. We don't hold of that. V'lo shapir davi lemed hachi, and it's not proper to act in such a way. Because Orchaim Chayv Anashim Besumi V'Puri Lo Shiyishtak B'Shash V'Orchos Chaim Lo Shiyishtaker Shashikas Isu Gomer. It doesn't mean you should get drunk. It's forbidden to get drunk. There's no greater transgression than that. Shugorim L'Gili Arayis. It leads to acts of immorality that a person wouldn't otherwise do, but since they were drunk, one thing led to another. Shvichas damim. It leads to murder. A person's drunk and in a murderous rage, he'll actually kill somebody. The kama averot zulatan, and many other averos besides that. Rather, what does it mean? Sheyishte yoter milimudo ma'at. So the Gemara is bringing, he says, this story in order to show that no, don't take it that far, but drink a little bit more than you normally do. That's how the Beis Yosef explains or holds over here. Yes?
Isn't there an opinion that you drink a little bit more than regular and you fall asleep?
Yes,
and that
good.
That way you don't differentiate.
Yes.
You can't differentiate.
Yes. Yes.
So, where do we weigh in about night versus day on these finally in the opinions? Because one said only in the daytime, and so you can't start drinking.
So the whole mitzvah to drink is by the seuda, by the meal. Right? We started off that the idea of drinking relates to the banquet. We have 4 mitzvot on Purim. Mitzvah number 1 is hearing the Megillah. And then we hear the Megillah, the scroll read twice, at night and then again the next morning. So that will be, where are we? Wednesday night and Thursday morning. By day, there are 3 other mitzvot that we have. And all of those 3 mitzvot are Su'uda, banquet type meal related. One of them is to have a Su'uda. The other one is to have this banquet type meal. The other is Mishloach Manot, sending food gifts. Right? Mishloach Manot, sending manot portions, a person to their friend. And that's why I tell people, I'll send it out again, that we should be part of the Mishloach Mana project that we have and all those things. In addition to that, make sure that each person sends to at least one person 2 food items, and that way they have clearly fulfilled the mitzvah. But the idea of sending food items is to make sure that everyone will be able to have a seuda. The 4th mitzvah is matanot le'evyonim. There we give money to 2 people in need. How much do we give? It's not prescribed. However, we say you should figure a minimum of $5 times 2. $5 to each of 2 people. Why? Because minimally, for $5, a person could have a little bit of a seuda. He could have himself, a bagel and this and a Coke or whatever it is. So a person could have a seuda. So again, that's all seuda, festive banquet meal based. And that's only by day. By day is the obligation. Therefore, the whole idea of drinking is only related to the seuda. The seuda is only by day. Therefore, everyone would agree that there's no reason to drink at night.
So why does traditionally, as a minchag in many shuls,
people like to find excuses to drink. And often they don't need all that much of an excuse to drink.
Also, it might, if you started at night, you might be in less good condition to hear every word of the
Correct.
Megillah.
That is correct. That is correct. Now, what's interesting is that the Shulchan Aruch, the Beit Yosef Karo, who came out so strongly against this idea of drinking ad lo yada, so you'd think that when he writes his Shulchan Aruch, you would think that he would mention just drink a little bit more than you usually do, and take a nap, and all is good. Yet, and this I don't have the English, but you'll be able to follow along with me in the Hebrew, right? On the second side of the page there, right? This is Dinei Seudat Purim, the laws of the meals of Purim. You go down the third line, you have the bold lettered Bet, and it says Chayiv Inish Libesume Bepuria. A person is obligated to become intoxicated on Purim until you don't differentiate between Arur Haman and Baruch Mordechai. Okay, now why is he saying it? Why is he bringing this like this? If he in the Beis Yosef on the Shulchan Aruch he wrote against it, and perhaps because I'm not sure. There are those that suggest that he's taking for granted that you know what he said before already, so he's just copying the words. The Ramah, Rav Moshe Isserles, jumps in and says, V'yesh omer, there are those that say, De'ein tzarich lihish taker kolkach, that one does not need to get drunk like that. Ella yishte yoter mi limudo. He should drink more than limudo. So I had a Rebbe, Mashkiach in Neve, who used to always say, you have to drink more than you usually learn. You guys aren't learning all that much, so you can't drink that much. But that's not what it means. Yosemi limudo doesn't mean then you learn, but more than you are accustomed to drinking. So again, in the idea of all the miracles that came about through these festive banquets, which included wine, so a person at the Purim Suda should be sure to drink more than they usually drink. V'yishan. And then what should you do?
Sleep.
Take a little nap. We're not talking about falling asleep in a drunken stupor, right? Drink a little more than you usually do, and then take a nap. And we talk sheyashan, and by sleeping, you say, hey, do you know the difference between Arham and Baruch Mordechai? And the guy says, right? So that way, he has Yotze. The Echad Amarbe, the Echad Amamit. So one can do more, one can do less. But the key is that his heart should be towards Shamayim. Let me go through a little further. Okay. What is this idea of cursed is Haman and blessed is Mordechai? So now I'm down over here in the Mishnah Brura. Okay? That is the bottom paragraph on the right, a little bit past the midway point. You have one? Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. Okay, a little bit past the midway point is a bold lettered Bet, and then a bold lettered Dalid that's in parentheses. Bein Arur Haman Shezem Apala Rishona. That was the first stage, the first downfall. Shaniton the Kamarabi manner that a great vengeance was taken from him. Va'od Tovi Yotermizeh, and then there was another goodness from God, which was Gedulat Mordechai. Mordechai being elevated to a high position. That God blessed him that he arose in prominence. V'hinei kodem shenishtaker nasam bevadei toda la'Hashem yitbarach al shtei hatovot. Right? Now certainly, before that, thanks was given to Hashem for these two tovot. V'al kain, and therefore Chazal, the sages say, shlo yafsik litin shevach al zeh b'simcha. Right? Don't stop from thanking God, from gratefully, happily thanking God, until you reach the point that you won't see the difference between this one and that one. You'll see Haman's downfall and Mordechai's ascent. Right? It'll just come joined together. The Ayim Eliyahu Zuta, but it's brought in a sefer called the Eliyahu Zuta. The Mikol Malkim Yir Eliyahu Zahir. But of course, you have to be scrupulous when it comes to washing your hands, the Netilat Yadayim, before you make the Hamotzi for that Suda. Ubirkat Hamotzi, the bracha of Hamotzi on the bread. Ubirkat Hamazon, and the blessing that with the benching we do after the meal. V'yiyeh simcha shel mitzvah. Okay? And it must be a simcha, not of a crazy drunkenness, but it must be the simcha of a mitzvah. Forever etched in my mind is attending a Purim Seudah. And the wife had worked very hard to prepare a beautiful, beautiful Seudah. And you'll pardon me, but watching somebody throw up into a bowl of soup that she had placed in front of him, and the look of horror on this woman's face after having worked to prepare this, and that being the reception, it's got to be a simcha shel mitzvah.
That's Viking.
Yeah, it's got to be now. Let's take a look at the Be'er Halacha. Okay, yes.
So it sounds like you should do only what will enhance and not detract
Well said.
from
the simcha of the mitzvah of Purim. That is correct. That which will enhance.
And in particular, since these are Seudah related, that the main focal point should be the Seudah.
Correct. Now, just a quick walkthrough over here. This is the page of the Mishnah Brura. We know that there's the Shulchan Aruch, the Code of Jewish Law. What the Chavetz Chaim did was, on the top, he quoted the Shulchan Aruch, written by Rav Yosef Karo, and the smaller letters is the Ramal, the glosses of Moshe Isserles. He quoted the Be'er Heitev, which was an existing parish, explanation, which culled together different opinions. He quotes the Sharei Tshuva, which is another halachic work on the Shulchan Aruch. The bottom half is what he does. The Mishnah Brura is where he brings together different opinions and gives us a clear path, a Mishnah Brura clear teaching. Be'er Halacha is where he explains that which he drew from to reach his halacha. And I cut off to make room, but on the bottom you have the Shar HaTzion, which is his footnotes where he brings. So in the Be'er Halacha he writes as follows. So the Be'er Halacha is on the bottom part of the page, the left-hand column. Be'er Halacha, we're going to go through two of them. Chayiv Inish, a person is obligated to get drunk on Purim until he doesn't know between cursed is Haman and blessed is Mordechai. V'im Tomar, you might ask, Heyach Yichayvu Chazal, how could our sages obligate Mashenizka, that which is mentioned in Torah and in the V amongst the prophets, B'kama Mekamot, in many places, Hashichut L'michshal Gadol, that drunkenness is something which leads to, let's say, poor behavior. Right? As he said before, the Beis Yosef said before, it leads to immorality, it could lead to murder. Since all the miracles that happened to the Jews during the days of Achashverosh, they all were, they all came about through these banquets. First was Vashti's downfall. Ayidei Mishta, through that banquet. Uba Esther, and Esther came through the drinking of the banquet. Haman, Uma Palato, and the downfall of Haman was Ayidei Mishta, through the drinking at a banquet. In order to remember the tremendous miracles that took place through the drinking of wine, that's why we call it mitzvah la'akev. Right, we're not going to say this is not la'akev, this is not an obligation, that one has not fulfilled their mitzvah without it. This is all an embellishment. And he goes further now. Ad lo yada, until you do not know. V'zeh lashon ha'meiri. This is the wording of the Meiri. Chayev adam laharbot b'simcha b'yom zeh. A person must increase their rejoicing on this day. Ba'achila, with eating, ubishti and drinking, ad shelo yechsar shum davar. Right, you're not missing anything. But we're certainly not. We're not commanded to get drunk. And to degrade, to diminish ourselves because of this simcha. We're not commanded for a simcha, for a happiness which is silliness and nonsense. But a deep, enjoyable happiness. Shiyagia mitocha, that one will get from there, la'ahavat Hashem yitbarach, to loving God. V'hoda'ah ala nisim, and thanking God, ala nisim, for the miracles she'asa lanu, that He's done for us as a nation, and that He's done for us as individuals. V'ayim Hashem v'va'er, and see there how He explains the Gemara. And this, he says, is the lashon, the wording of the Chai Adam. Kevan shekol haneis hayadei yayin, since all the miracle took place through wine, lachein chibu chachameinu l'shtaker, right? The chacham and the sages obligate us to drink, to become intoxicated, ulefachot lishtot yotem ergelo, or at least to drink more than we normally drink. Now, I don't normally drink. I have a little bit of wine, or someone's making a l'chaim, and it's for a good cause. They say, Rabbi, make a l'chaim. So I will smile and say, sure, and I'll drink it, and it goes right to my head, and I feel it immediately. Not in a good way. Kidei lizkor, so drink more, and for me, I'm getting drunk. I mean, I'm not drunk, but I feel it immediately. Kidei lizkor haneis hagadol, in order to remember the great miracle. V'amna. However, hayodea ba'atzmo, you've got to know yourself. Someone who knows himself. Sheyul zalzel az. The mitzvah and mitzvot. That my drinking will cause me to be less serious. Yizalzel, to cheapen. One mitzvah of all the mitzvot. B'netilat yadayim, washing my hands. Bracha, making a bracha. Birkat hamazon, benching. Oshlo yitpalo mincha, or you're going to miss davening mincha. Oh, Mariv, or you'll miss the Mariv, the afternoon service, the evening service. Oh, Yinhog. This is the next page, I just follow the arrow. Kalut Rosh, are you going to act in a light-headed fashion? Mutav Shalo Yishtaker. It is preferred not to drink. The Kol Ma'asav Yihu L'Shem Shamayim. All of your actions should be for the sake of heaven. Ad kan lishono, that is the end of the quote that he brought from the Chaye Adam. Now, there are times, I know with myself, going back many years of Purims, a person drinks and we become more emotional. I've seen guys davening mincha shmona esrei, not drunk, but having drank a little bit, and they're crying, and they're davening for 20 minutes, and all of a sudden, guys, when I was a Rebbe in Yeshiva, who were making me crazy the whole time, will say, Rabbi, I just want to tell you how much we appreciate what you do for us. There's a certain, the inhibitions become diminished somewhat. The Gemara says, Nichnas yayin yatsa sod. When the wine goes in, that which is inside comes out. Now, it's not meant to be literal. Right? That's the problem. Sometimes we get to the point where it becomes a literal description of what's happening. But it's meant to be that, the feelings and the thoughts that we have that we're often unable or unwilling or uncomfortable to go ahead and express those, that we are able to do that. And in such a way, right? And it's to others, and it's to Hashem. And drinking a little bit on Purim can have that uplifting effect of of opening up one's heart and being able to say the things to Hashem and to others that one is often inhibited or is uncomfortable saying. And that's when I think it's being used in a good, positive, uplifting, and building manner. But certainly, if it's going to turn into, right, well, not to allow it to get to the point where it turns into just craziness. That is clearly not the mitzvah, and not what we as Jews, as human beings, are tasked with. Yes?
So provided you rose early and you heard Megillah and you did the giving of the shekels.
You did your mitzvahs.
And everything. Work is not prohibited. But now from what we've just said, if you're focused on your work day, you're not focused on simcha b'mitzvah.
You know, when I moved to the States after living in Israel for many years, I was shocked that Purim was people went to work as a regular work day on Purim.
It's because you don't have the focus of
so let me tell you, in Israeli society, people do not go to work on Purim. Purim is not a day, to clock in at work. Yeah, if a person does need to go to work and is going, that should be a vacation day that is taken, whatever the situation is. If a person feels they can't for whatever reason, okay, so then they should make sure to take out the time to have a seuda at some point.
You might leave work early, but still.
Yes,
all those
I agree.
Things,
I agree.
I agree. What happens typically is sometimes all the other Torah prescribed Yom Tov and times off.
I understand.
You've done your vacation.
I understand.
But
I'm not judging. I understand.
If the sages have mandated it, then people could say, but my religion requires it.
They can say that, and the boss can say, fair enough. You want to take off, you can take off, but you're not going to get paid for that.
Right.
Right. That's everyone's
We
prerogative.
have a religious happy hour. Okay?
Yeah.
But since it's not required, they don't have that leg to stand on.
We see that there is. Look, there's the mitzvah of the
You
Suda.
haven't said it's a non-work day.
No, malacha is allowed. You can drive. You can do all the things on that day. That's correct.
So,
Yes. Okay, Robert. I'm about to wrap up. You want to say something, Robert, or are you good?
Well, because
Did you want to say? You had your hand up before. You want to say something, or are you good? You had your hand up before. Did you want to say something? Oh,
I'm
sorry.
But
Very
the
good.
I don't have a
recommendation then would be that you do that. You do notify them that you're taking vacation as they have that day.
Ideally, a person should spend Purim as a full day of Purim. Yeah. Yes. Yes, Lorette.
No, I'm a little bit confused because Purim is actually to celebrate the miracle with Esther. Why do we have to get drunk to get
Correct.
one with Haman and
Correct. So what we're really saying over here is that we're supposed to celebrate the miracle through a seuda, through a nice festive meal. There should be more drinking at that meal than one normally drinks, because the miracles came about through drinking. And if a person drinking a little bit helps elevate them and gets them into a more, honest, emotional, happy mood, right? Then that is being done in a positive way. If it's going to cause them to become lax in any of the mitzvot, right, or the way they treat one another, right, then certainly one should not. I'll just end off with the famous teaching of the Arizal. Now, we know about Yom Kippurim, right? Yom Kippurim, right, is the Day of Atonement. It's the most serious day. See, he says that's Yom Kippurim. That's a day that is like Purim, meaning it's almost as good as Purim, because there are different ways that we connect to Hashem. We connect to Hashem through fear, right, and through sadness, which is what often happens on Yom Kippur, or we connect to Hashem through happiness. And that is the preferred mode of connection. And therefore Yom Kippurim is Yom Kippurim. It's a day that's almost as good as Purim. So our focus needs to be that the simcha is a simcha that is guided towards Hashem, towards one another, in an uplifted and uplifting way.
Is Kippur K-Purim or Purim K-Kippur?
So Yom it's a Yom Kippurim. Ki'ilu as strong as Purim. That's how he says Yom Kippurim, Yom Kippurim.
So they're as equal, but
Yeah, but it seems if I say this day is like that one, then the one that's like that, that's the even greater one. Right? So Yom Kippur is like, almost as great as Purim.
They say all the other holidays might go away, but Purim stays.
Yeah, V'zichro lo yasuf mizaro. Yeah.
So if push came to shove, I could say my rabbi has strongly recommended to an employer. I mean, that's the way to put it.
You can say that. I will back you up on that.
No, but that would be my first way to approach it. If they said, well, this is not like Rosh Hashanah or Yom Kippur or Pesach. What's Purim?
That's correct.
All right.
It's not like the others where one is prohibited from doing any
Right.
halacha.
Well,
So that is correct.
many employers wouldn't be familiar, but if I would at least would have some authority to back it up a little.
Yeah.
We're done. Okay, thank you, Rabbi.